back to Learning with Lydia, and today we're going to read another chapter in Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I have a special friend with me today. It's a fox named Pax. His name is supposed to be Frederick, but I named him Pax. Anyway, he's gonna sit here and listen. Yes, I'm going to listen. So we left off when they shot off his tail. Okay. Okay, so I'll read it to you. The Terrible Shovels, Chapter 4. Down in the hole, Mrs. Fox was tenderly licking the stump of Mr. Fox's tail to stop the bleeding. Ew. It was the finest tail for miles around, she said between licks. It hurts, said Mr. Fox. I know it does, sweetheart. It'll soon get better. It'll soon grow again, Dad, said one of the small foxes. It'll never grow again, said Mr. Fox. I shall be tailless for the rest of my life. He looked very glum. There was no food for the foxes that night, and soon the children dozed off. Then Mrs. Fox dozed off, but Mr. Fox couldn't sleep because of the pain of the stump of his tail. Well, he thought, I suppose I'm lucky to be alive at all. And now they've found our hole, and we're going to have to move out as soon as possible. Never get any peace if we... What was that? He turned his head sharply and listened. The noise that he heard was the most frightening noise a fox can ever hear. The scrape, 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 scraping of the shovels digging up the soil. Wake up, he shouted. They're digging us out. Mrs. Fox was wide awake in 1 second. She sat up, quivering all over. Are you sure that's it? She whispered. I'm positive. Listen. They'll kill my children, said Mrs. Fox. Never, said Mr. Fox. But darling, they will, sobbed Mrs. Fox. You know they will. Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch went the shovels above their heads. Small stones and bits of earth began falling through the roof of the tunnel. How will they kill us, Mommy? Asked one of the small foxes. His round black eyes were huge with fright. Would there be dogs? He said. Mrs. Fox began to cry. She gathered her 4 children close and held them tight. Suddenly, there was a especially loud crunch above their heads, and the sharp end of a shovel came right through the ceiling. The sight of this awful thing seemed to have an electric effect upon Mr. Fox. He jumped up and shouted, I got it! Come on! There's not a moment to lose. Why didn't I think of it before? Think of what, Dad? A fox can dig quicker than a man, shouted Mr. Fox, beginning to dig. Nobody in the world can dig as quick as a fox. The soil began to fly out furiously behind Mr. Fox as he started to dig for dear life with his front feet. Mrs. Fox ran forward to help him. So did the 4 children. Go downwards, ordered Mr. Fox. We've got to go deep as we possibly can. The tunnel began to grow longer and longer. It slowly steeped downward. Deeper and deeper below the surface of the ground it went. The mother and father and all of the 4 children were digging together. Their front legs were moving so fast you couldn't see them. And gradually, the scrunching and scraping of the shovels became fainter and fainter. After about an hour, Mr. Fox stopped digging. Hold it, he said. They all stopped. They turned and looked back up the long tunnel they had just dug. All was quiet. Phew, said Mr. Fox. I think we've done it. They'll never get as deep as this. Well done, everyone. They all sat down, panting for breath. And Mrs. Fox said to her children, I should like you to know that if it wasn't for your father, we should all be dead by now. Your father is a fantastic fox. Mr. Fox looked at his wife and smiled. He loved her more than ever when she said things like that. Okay, so we're going to read one more chapter. Oh, and here is a cool picture. See, that's Mr. Fox. You see Mrs. Fox. As the sun rose the next morning, Bugus and Bunce and Bean were still digging. They dug a hole so deep you could have put a house into it. But they had not come to the end of the fox's tunnel. They were all very tired and cross. "Dang and blast," said Bugus. "Whose rotten idea was this?" "Bean's idea," said Bunce. Bugus and Bunce both stared at Bean. Bean took another swig of cider, then put the glass back into his pocket without offering it to the others. "Listen," he said angrily. "I want that fox. I'm going to get that fox. I'm not giving till I've strung him up over my front porch, dead as a dumpling. We can't get him by digging, that's for sure," said the fat Bugus. "I've had enough of digging." Bunce, the little pot-bellied dwarf, looked up at Bean and said, "Have you got any more stupid ideas then?" "That's not nice." "What?" said Bean. "I can't hear you." Bean never took a bath. He never even washed. Ew. As a result, his ear holes were clogged with all kinds of muck and wax and bits of chewing gum and dead flies and ew. Oh, there's more pictures. Look at those. Whoa. And there's more pictures. And there's another picture. Okay. Stuff like that and stuff like that. This made him deaf. "Speak louder," he said to Bunce, and Bunce shouted back, "Got any more stupid ideas?" Bean rubbed the back of his neck with his dirty finger. He had a boil coming there and it itched. "We need on this job," he said, "is mechanical shovels. We'll have it out of there in 5 minutes with mechanical shovels." This was a pretty good idea, and the two others had to admit it. "All right then," said Bean, taking charge. "Bugus, you stay there and see the fox doesn't escape. Bunce and I will go out and fetch our machinery. If he tries to get out, shoot him quick." The long, thin Bean walked away. Then the tiny Bunce trotted after him. The fat Bugus stayed where he was, with his gun pointing at the foxhole. Soon, two enormous caterpillar tractors with mechanical shovels on their front ends came clanking into the wood. Bean was driving one. Bunce was the other. Whoa. Do you think they're going to get the foxes? I don't know, but... The machines were both black. They were murderous, brutal-looking monsters. "Here we go, then," shouted Bean. "Death to the fox," shouted Bunce. The machines went to work, biting huge mouthfuls of soil out of the hill. The big tree under which Mr. Fox had dug his hole in the first place was toppled like a matchstick. On all sides, rocks were sent flying, and trees were falling, and the noise was deafening. Okay, whatever. Down in the tunnels, the foxes crouched, listening to the terrible thing clanging and banging overhead. "What's happening, Dad?" cried the small foxes. "What are they doing?" Mr. Fox didn't know what was happening or what they were doing. "It's an earthquake!" cried Mrs. Fox. "Look," said one of the small foxes. Our tunnels got shorter. I could see daylight." They looked all around, and yes, the mouth of the tunnels was only a few feet away from them now. In a circle They looked around, and yes, the mouth of the tunnel was only a few feet away from them now, and the circle of daylight beyond they could see the huge black tractors almost on top of them. Tractors! Shouted Mrs. Fox. And mechanical shovels! Dig for your lives! Dig, dig, dig! The race. Could I read another chapter, Mom?
Just stop it now because the video will be too long.
Okay. Well, I have to go now, but I'll probably make another.